All right, so welcome everyone to the March membership meeting of the West Seattle Transportation Coalition, with a very fabulous sunrise picture from the bridge because my husband and I get up incredibly early in the morning to drive it to work. But there are moments like this that make it worth it. Tonight's agenda, if you did not receive a meeting reminder earlier today, we'll do some brief welcome and introductions. We will approve previous meeting minutes. We are scheduled to have a conversation with Reconnect South Park, which we've been meaning to do since last year. So very excited to have them with us tonight to talk about the community coalition that's calling for the potential removal or restructuring of SR 99 through South Park. You can learn more at their website there, reconnectsouthpark.org. Following that, which, half an hour, give or take, we will transition over to the second guest joining us. I have it here as a conversation with Fauntleroy Community Association about their concerns with Washington State Ferry's proposed expansion of the Fauntleroy Ferry dock. And that is their address there. If you were with us back in January, we did talk a little bit about it, but as you'll recall, their president, Mike Day, could not be with us at that meeting, so we have him here with us tonight. So that's exciting. We'll rerun over old business. We'll talk about any new business and adjourn possibly before 8:30 tonight. We'll see. If you have not been with us before, the purpose of the West Seattle Transportation Coalition is to be a peninsula-wide organization working to address transportation and commuting challenges for the nearly 100,000 people who currently live and work on the West Seattle Peninsula. And we accomplish that by securing supportive residents, engaging elected officials at all levels. We partner with government agencies sometimes to do education and outreach opportunities, as well as engaging with businesses, community organizations, neighborhood groups, and individuals in order to educate and collect feedback, which we'll be doing a lot of this evening. This may be a little harder to read than usual. It's a little smaller because squeezed in some things at the bottom there again. Our goals are affordable and equitable transportation options, particularly in historically underserved neighborhoods, a transportation network that moves people and goods in an environmentally sustainable manner, investments in transportation infrastructure to match Seattle's growth, and our priorities. So we had some talk at the end of last year and beginning of this year about what our priorities look like for 2023. We carried over continuing to support Sound Transit 3 planning, education, and outreach, as well as monitoring the Fauntleroy Ferry Terminal Trestle and Span Replacement Project, which is a reason that we have our guest joining us tonight. But if you haven't been following along, we've got 3 new things that we've swapped in for 2023. One is we want to pay attention to the work around the West Marginal Way Southwest Safety Corridor Project and Protected Bike Lane. We'll talk actually a little bit more about this maybe again later. We're thinking about maybe reaching out to really push Metro to do some bus route planning here in the West Seattle area. And then we've tagged this, even though you'll see this is Move Seattle Levy Renewal Planning, which will really pick up next year. But we thought we'd still tag it on here as, towards the very end of 2023, we might want to look at sort of gathering people together to start thinking about what is it that we dream or envision here in West Seattle that we might want to pitch to the Seattle Department of Transportation in 2024, which is when they will kick off the renewal planning. And then the reason things are small is I slipped in our priorities in 2020-21 a little bit there. Those who remember back then, one of our top priorities for quite a while was monitoring the Delridge Way and Rapid Ride H multimodal project progress. And we are all very excited, although I don't believe there were any balloons. But we were very excited that as of last weekend, Rapid Ride H is operating in the Delridge corridor. So we now have 2 rapid rides over here in West Seattle. If you want more information, you can go to this specific page here on King County's website. As part of tonight's introductions, we, as usual, we direct people over to the chat window. I will say I'm Michael Taylor Judd. I'm chair of the West Seattle Transportation Coalition. You will hear as a moderator tonight our one of our other board members, Kate Wells, and various other board members may be asking questions, but we direct people over to the chat, which I believe is turned on. Someone can confirm for me. Oh, no, now it should be turned on for you. And you can drop in your name, pronouns, any access needs you have. We always like to ask what neighborhood. And then the question I came up with tonight was, if you were in charge of Metro's social media, what would your hashtag or slogan be for the new H line? And finally, if you need to be added to our email list because you didn't get the meeting reminder earlier, you can switch in the chat window to send a private message. You can send to John Wright, who's another board member who's with us tonight, and just give him your email address and he can get you added. And that way, by sending private, you don't have to expose your email address to everybody in the chat. And before we move on to our first guest who's joined us, quick pause to approve previous meeting minutes. Board members should have received the email from Kate. Hopefully you had a chance to review them. For those who weren't able to attend our January meeting or want to know more about what we've been doing, we do have a YouTube channel, which now has a slightly more easy to remember title, at West Seattle Transportation C7389. I'll see if I can trim that down a little more, but that's still way better than the jumble of letters and numbers we previously had. You can also always go to our Facebook page, and there's a section to look at live videos, and you can review previous meetings there as well. I would entertain a motion from a board member to approve previous meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Deb. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. With that, the meeting minutes carry. I know I saw Maria come in. I don't know if Madeline Spencer or anyone else is joining her. Maria, do you have slides or anything that you'll be sharing?
You know, I can't find them. They're still preliminary, so I'm sorry. Maybe we could
That's fine.
take off the share and we could see each other.
Yeah.
So,
Made you a co-host just in case you come across anything you want to share.
thank you. Yes.
Welcome to our first guest, Maria Ramirez, who is with the Duwamish Valley Affordable Housing Coalition, but not necessarily representing them tonight. I'll leave it up to her to say what their position is. But for those who want to know her background and why she's excited about this process. And again, you can find out more at reconnectsouthpark.org. And then I'm going to stop sharing and hopefully we can see a little more of Maria face to face. Thank you for joining us, Maria.
Thanks. Thanks. Hopefully my hair's not too flat. Hi, all. Let me see if I can put you on a screen so I can see you all. Hello. I saw a couple familiar names. I'm Maria Ramirez, and I live in the Westwood neighborhood. And for the past 5 years, I've been heading up the Duwamish Valley Affordable Housing Coalition. I'm a project manager by profession. And so when the Reconnect South Park project came up, they were looking for a project manager and I was available. And so I was already involved in the project before they were looking for a project manager because we're interested in affordable housing and more land means more chances of developing affordable housing. So it was a natural for me. And so I started up in November. I don't know, are all of you familiar with this campaign we're on? Sort of, okay. So about a year ago, I think, one of Cote Sorens, who lives in South Park, and she had an idea. She said, what if we got rid of Highway 99 that cuts through South Park? That would help a lot of outcomes, the health disparities that exist. People live 13 years less, the folks who live in South Park, than any other part in Seattle. And so, and I've got a great image, and I'm really sorry I don't have it, but there's a great image of, like, there's two highways, there's the airport coming through, and then the river. And so there's a lot of environmental damage to the area. And then we just recently had flooding in South Park. So for many reasons, this seemed to become sort of a sexy idea. And it made it to the top 10 list of highways that need to go in the country. It's a national movement to acknowledge that development just cut through poor communities, communities of color, and they just tore them apart. There's a project that's going on in Detroit. There's many projects that are going on. I just heard a presentation on one in Detroit. And so the history behind the existing highway is that it was sort of like a temporary fix, and they weren't supposed to go develop it all, but it seems to be all rooted in racism, frankly. You know, the Japanese Americans who farmed there were interned, and that land was taken over to build the highway on. This actually used to be a very rich valley. I'm a very urbanite. I'm an urbanite. I grew up in Chicago. I just saw a highway, but now that I know this 99, it's just the last mile of Highway 99 from that clover leaf over by the McDonald's in South Park, ending at Holden, the light where you would turn left to get onto First Avenue South Bridge. And right now, there are plans to upgrade Highway 509. And so we're hoping that that'll help find solutions if the highway was to be closed. And so the idea came up last year. Cote and others met with legislators. The state DOT put up $600,000 to study this, do a feasibility study. Half of the money goes to a technical team that's going to do all kinds of studies. And that 1.6 million that maybe you heard about it in the news, this project was just awarded 1.6 million 2 weeks ago from the federal DOT, the US Department of Transportation, to do the studies, the modeling studies that we need to keep moving this forward, and to develop an equitable development plan. And so there were a series of 3 community meetings over the summer, trying to get interest from the community to build a coalition to respond to the city's RFP for the community engagement portion of the project. And the goal of the community engagement, which is what I'm heading up, is to work with the community at large, all the neighbors to the highway and the city, and anyone you think we need to talk to get them together to help develop a vision. You know, what are our options at the end? And next year, we hope to have some visuals, something that shows this is what we would do, cut and cover, removal. You know, it all depends on the studies and the impacts. And so right now, with the flooding and climate change, this land could also serve for remediation for folks that have to leave their homes. It could get far on reparations. I, in the Housing Coalition, have filed for a 501c3 community land trust. And so we're meeting now with the Duwamish to see if they will hold this land trust and hopefully, you know, actually have some land to shepherd, to monitor, and to own. And so we're really excited. We're getting all kinds of input. Right now, we're setting up meetings. We're planning a really big community meeting for May 13. It's a Saturday around 1 o'clock. It's going to be at Concord Elementary. Our flyers should be ready tomorrow. We just got started in January, so we're a little, I'm just catching up with all kinds of details. So I've got a great team put together of about 20 people, a combination of designers, organizers, and media, multimedia, videographers, photographers, writers, a very diverse group of people. And we've got designers from Environmental Works, and then MXM, and 2 other ones, Eric, the Wamish Valley Safe Streets, and one other group, I can't remember the name right now, with Mark Johnson. So they're all people who live and work in the area. And that's what we've tried to do. This whole group is our folks who live and work in the area. And we've got people who definitely are the naysayer. We got at least one. So we always have to be like, keep us honest. And so right now, for the team is focusing on May 13. And then we're having individual meetings like this, meeting with different groups and talking about the project, and asking who else we need to be talking to. And, if there's any questions I could answer right now, where we're at right now. So how's that?
Sounds pretty good to me. Do folks have questions? Feel free to raise your hand and Kate can call on you. Or again, if you would like to drop questions into the chat, Kate can read them from the chat as well.
Looks like Deb had her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Deb Barker here. And Maria, I just got to say, wow. Hearing about the idea and then hearing, it just seemed like, a few days later that you guys got money out of the feds. It's just an exciting feeling to know that you guys are just on the move. This is so great.
Yes.
I was curious from your perspective, where are who's balking? Who are the naysayers? If you're able to identify that, and maybe my question is better phrased as how's it going with the business community?
Business, we haven't talked too much. There's small businesses in South Park. The ones we need to worry about is the Port of Seattle. The truckers.
Well, the truckers are private, and then they all head on over to the port. But so
Right.
And they're not unionized per se. So yeah.
Yeah, we want to talk to the rideshare drivers, but we haven't. The port, I think we're also, we're working with the city, with the Office of Planning and Community Development. So we can't take credit for all of this. The city actually wrote the grant to the feds for that money. So it's a really great partnership.
Good.
Yeah.
But your holes that you think are the folks you still want to connect with are the truckers, you said?
Yeah, the truckers. And yes, definitely. People who count on that road. And, we need to make studies of that, of how it's used. So yeah, we need to hear from everyone.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Appreciate it.
Deb. I did, by the way, ask Larry if I could talk at the D1.
D1CN,
meeting.
right. Did
Yeah,
he give you a
D1CN.
date for that for
I just wrote-
April?
I just wrote to him today.
Okay, well, I
So-
can tentatively put you on the April.
And
uh,
I promised to have slides. So, and
5th, April 5, okay?
okay, great, April 5.
Yeah.
And then I wrote to the Dems, the 34th district.
Okay,
So if there's anyone else you think we need to talk with, please let me know. I'm thinking of West Seattle. And I mean, now that the bridge is open, we're not so, but that's always going to be our back route is through South Park.
Absolutely.
The
So,
good thing is a lot more people in West Seattle now know that your neighborhood exists.
Exactly.
And they
That's
know
true.
you've got fabulous neighborhoods that they are, sorry, neighborhood businesses that they want to visit.
Yeah, that's true.
And continue to patronize.
Mhm.
I mean, we obviously want to defer to you and the coalition there. I mean, from conversations our board has had, I think we're quite excited to potentially support what you're doing, but we don't want to walk in if you guys are really looking to sort of keep it South Park people on the
No,
ground. But anyway, we can help you get the word out, or if you're looking to reach out to more people in West Seattle to get them involved, we'd love to help with that. So
thank you. That's wonderful. Yeah, we would, we definitely want you there at the May 13th event. We want to get a lot of people, a lot of input. We've got a really cool station set up so people can actually walk to the little park we have that's right under the freeway. And the skate park that's right next to the freeway. The ramp is right there. And then the library, they're all so close to the freeway. I mean, yeah, so yes, Michael, we can use all the help we can in getting the word out. We want to get a good turnout. If there's any groups you think we need to talk with, or maybe over the summer, tabling somewhere, it's going to be at least another year of activities. We'll be planning 3 big community meetings. So this is just the first one.
I mean, we definitely have some summer festivals over here in West Seattle.
Yes,
That'd be good to be at.
yes.
And is there a sense, I mean, I know there've been some community gatherings and discussions already. Like, is there a sense at all what people sort of are hoping for, or are they really sort of leaning into this study right now and seeing what the study proposes?
Well, we've had some workshops we're calling ourselves a conveners group, the 20 or so people. And we came up with urban farming, a community that's not so car centric, but more walking and biking. And yes,
This is
there's
from your website.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's it. And so, affordable housing. Yeah, that's a model that was created by the architecture school. Yes, thank you. And this was, these were one of the community meetings that we had over the summer. Yeah, we were at South Park Hall there. I'm just brainstorming ideas.
We definitely support grassroots workshops happening in spaces and hands-on things. We have done this ourselves here, so we love to see it when other people do it. So.
Yeah, thanks. We got a really cool group of people. You probably know some of them, but we're really excited about having this event and getting some really good ideas.
So I was curious about how far the federal grant might go. Is that just enough money for some preliminary outreach and events, or does it actually, might it cover some design in the end?
Design. Well, the 600 from the state is the outreach and the technical work. The new 1.6 million is a little more, some for engagement, but the big part are the studies that have to take place.
Yeah.
To decide on different routes. So design might be limited to that, to like agreeing on the route, how traffic would flow. But as far as like the land itself, the community will come up with a vision of if that highway was gone or covered, what would be put there. We'd probably have some general ideas on that. That's probably within a year. That's only a year away. And then we go back and ask for more money. So some people think it's, we got money now to start drilling on the freeway, but no, we have no money to start doing any kind of work. on the freeway or the highway.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Well, I thank you for your time. I know we got serious issues in transportation. I can't believe we have so much pedestrian mortality, the high level here and where we live. And so, you know, I really thank you for all the work that you do in pushing and for safety and of the community. And I checked the route time from here to UW. It's the same amount of time with the H line and with the 120. So I don't see where the time savings is, or if there was any, supposed to be any, but that's my 2 cents.
There's some consolidation of stations or stops, I guess, which but not as much. I think we maintained more than on some of the other lines, because initial outreach, which just seems years ago when we first started talking about it, but initial, you know, neighborhood planning things, there's a considerable number of residents who use the 120 to travel around one end of the neighborhood to the other, to go to the library, to go to our new grocery, things like that. And so I think we were able to impress that, like, can't remove all of the stations, you can't remove all the bus stops, because we actually need to get around, and you're actually going to make it harder for people to get around in the neighborhood. So,
Okay. All righty. Well,
all right. Well,
thank you.
unless there are any other questions, we'll thank Maria for joining us. You know,
Thank you.
send over the flyer when you got it, and
I will.
You know, keep in touch and let us know how we can support.
And
Thank you.
Maria, this is Deb. I'll be in contact with you. Actually, would you mind dropping your email into the chat, Maria?
Sure.
And then I'll be able to connect with you for D1CN.
Sure.
So less than 2 weeks away.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I am going to keep us moving forward. Since Mike is with us, I'm going to assume that you are ready to jump in a little sooner than we were expecting. So up next on our agenda is a conversation with Fauntleroy Community Association President Michael Day. Again, following up some more on concerns for State Ferry's proposed expansion of the Fauntleroy Ferry dock. Again, there's their website if you want more info. And if you were with us last month, Mike, I threw this up during our meeting last month while the board chatted a little bit about it. I stole a few things from your December newsletter. So I don't know if you wanted to mention anything there, or I can take that back down and we can have a more face-to-face conversation like we were having with Maria.
I thank you for doing this. This is great. I think if we take it down, I'm going to cover some of these points, so we'll go through them. And
all right, sounds good. Take it away.
Well, thank you all for doing this. I apologize for not making the previous meetings. I'm here actually to ask the West Seattle Transportation Coalition for a letter of support in opposing expansion of the Fauntleroy Ferry dock. And I will go into the details, why, and open this up to questions and comments and discussion. For a bit of history, this is not a new issue. This issue started back in 1979 when Washington State Ferries, Washington State Department of Transportation requested funding from the state legislature to expand the ferry dock, put in a second slip, make the dock bigger. Because of opposition from the neighborhood at that time, 1979, the state requested and funded a survey or a study to evaluate whether the dock should stay and what the constraints were around it. The results of that study came out in about 1980, and they said the ferry dock is fine where it is, but it should limit its size, capacity, the number of cars that cross to 1.25 million, which was the the number of cars that were traveling at that time. So back in 1980, it was 1.25 million. But they also recommended actually removal of the ferry dock on or before 1984. Now that clearly hasn't happened. But in 1980, following the community's concerns, Mayor Charlie Royer announced his opposition to expansion of the dock. And then in 1983, there was a proposal by the city and state to convert Fauntleroy Way into a state highway as an extension of Highway 160 coming over from the Olympic Peninsula and connecting it then to the I-5. That was reviewed and opposed by the Seattle Department of Transportation in 1986. At that same time, Mayor Royer opposed the conversion of Fauntleroy as a Seattle street into a state highway. He said, sort of over my dead body, he did not want to see Fauntleroy go the way that either 99 has or Lake City Way. And in 1989, the city and state dropped that proposal to make it a state highway. But in 1991, WSTC went back to the legislature to again request funding to add a second terminal dock at Fauntleroy and add a third toll booth. Senator Phil Talmadge at the time declared his opposition to the expansion, as did County Council member Greg Nichols. In 1997, the City Council, at the request of Fauntleroy and Morgan Community Associations and other parts of West Seattle, passed Resolution 29566, stating there should be no dock expansion and that the ferry system should reduce the ferry traffic through Fauntleroy and try to improve the the public transportation usage. And I'll go into that in a little more detail. That was that resolution was passed in 1997. And in 2008, WSTC again went back to the state for funding to expand the terminal. In 2009, Dow Constantine expressed his opposition to that expansion. So rolling forward in 2019, the ferry system put together their 20-year plan. At the time, they quoted a number of cars crossing from Southworth and Vashon to 1.65 million. So that's 400,000 cars more than the state study said was the maximum that should be on it. And the expansion, they're expecting that by 2040, that number will increase to 1.9 million cars. That's clearly both in excess of what the state study found was maximum that could travel through the community and cross the bridge, and also out of compliance or out of disregard to the resolution that the city council passed. So where are we today? The current status is that Washington State Ferries is saying that they need to increase the size of the ferry dock. They say that they need to increase it because of operational efficiency. They are currently evaluating two options. One is to keep the dock where it is, same size, same footprint, but raise it in elevation for concerns over rising tidal water, remove the creosote piles and replace those with concrete, and improve the seismic capability of the dock. The other option is to rebuild the dock in the same place, but increase the footprint. Again, making it seismically stable, removing the creosote piles, increasing the elevation to deal with tidal increases. Their request for increase in size is up to 180 cars. The current capacity of the dock is 80, so they would more than double the size of the dock. They have said that they will not expand the dock and take over what is now Cove Park, but they would push the dock west out into Puget Sound and then potentially widen it once they get out a ways. So it would be much wider out in the water than it is at shore. The Fauntleroy Community Association, together with Morgan Community Association, Admiral Community Association, and the Highland Park Action Committee, which you may all know as South Delridge, Riverview, and Highland Park, have all written letters in opposition for the expansion. And there are a number of reasons that we are opposed to it. And I will go through them in some detail. First of all, it's unnecessary. Second of all, we are concerned about and continue to be concerned about the increase in traffic that is projected. Third, there are environmental concerns. And fourth, and importantly, it does not achieve what they're, I think what they have led people to believe, which is that more people will cross more quickly from the Olympic Peninsula side back to the mainland and back and forth. So it's, let me go back to the comment that it's unnecessary. The issue with the efficiency that ferries is facing is really due to the toll booths. That's where the traffic backs up. And this is really a westbound issue at rush hour. Starts usually around 3:30 and goes till 5, or starts at 4 and goes to 6. It's 2 to 3 hours a day. If they were to automate that ticket toll booth, they would eliminate that bottleneck. And we have pushed for that. They are in the process of evaluating it. I think they have gotten a lot of pushback from the people on the 3 different committees that are reviewing this, that the toll booths are archaic. You know, we have automatic car readers on ferries, on the bridges and the tunnels. Why can't we do the same thing on the ferries? Second of all, there's 180 car capacity in addition to what is already on the dock. There's another 180 car capacity up Fauntleroy. The parking lane from the ferry dock up to the end of Lincoln Park will hold 180 cars, and that's a Washington State Ferries number. So that they really have essentially a parking lot now that will adequately serve their increased capacity concern for 1.5 times what the ferries will hold. Third is that 80% of the vehicles that use the ferry are single occupancy vehicles. That compares to 60% at all the other ferry terminals in the state. That 80% single occupancy vehicle number has not changed since 1979, despite efforts to repeatedly get ferries to focus on multimodal transportation, improving connectivity. There's been no effort whatsoever to try to improve that. I should point out that the pedestrian traffic, pedestrian ferries are actually a county function. They're not Washington State Ferries. There's both a legal reason for that, but also Dow Constantine has made the point that he would have appreciated some help in that from the ferry system. So the pedestrian ferries have improved the ridership, but they haven't reduced the percentage of single occupancy vehicles. The other point I made was too much traffic. When the study was done in 1979 and limited the capacity for this peninsula to 1.25 million cars, Fauntleroy Way was 30 to 35 miles an hour. We're now down to 25 miles an hour. And we put in, as of 2017, 1.65 to 1.7 million cars. Adding another 300,000 cars a year to this does not take into account the increased construction and residency on the peninsula, putting more load on the bridge and the neighborhoods. Most of the people that come over on the ferry do not work in West Seattle. They're on their way to someplace else. And so it's through traffic. It's not that it increases business. The third is the environmental concerns. There's a salmon stream that is just south of the ferry dock. Last 2 years, we set record numbers of salmon returning. The overwater coverage that the ferry dock would add as an environmental concern. The other part is that frankly, that dock will be empty 21 to 22 hours a day because they don't need it. They only need it, the only time it will be full is during the rush hour, that 2 to 3 hour period. So for the rest of the time, it's a very expensive overwater parking lot, which could be replaced just using the parking strip along Fauntleroy between the dock and Lincoln Park. And lastly, as I said, that there's really no improvement in the number or rate at which passengers and cars, foot passengers and cars, will get across from one side to the other. That is a function of the size of the boat and the speed at which the boats travel. Ferries have said they do not intend to increase the size of the boats. They're keeping it at 120 car capacity. And the system now can only handle 3 boats on the run. Ferries has had a hard time keeping 3 boats on its run the last year on 2 boats because they don't have the manpower or frankly, the boats themselves to maintain the 3-boat schedule. So there'd be with expanding the dock, there would be no improvement ultimately to the users. And we are sympathetic to the people who live on Vashon. We think that that's, they live on an island. This whole point that we're trying to make is they don't benefit from this. Where they would really benefit is automating the toll booths so they could just drive on the ferries. We have made contacts with all of the legislators, Joe Fitzgibbon, Joe McDermott, Joe Nguyen, and they have all expressed their opposition to expansion of the dock. We have also got Lisa Herbold's support, and she was encouraging me to meet with you all to see if we could gain your support. We've also kept Sarah Nelson and Mayor Harrell in the loop on this, and recently had another letter from Greg Nichols expressing his continued concern and opposition to dock expansion. Now it's important to state that the Fauntleroy community and all the other communities here in West Seattle recognize the importance and use of the ferry dock. We said this from day one. we are in full support of replacing the piles, making it environmentally more sound, seismically more sound. So we are all about improving the dock. We are just opposed to increasing the footprint. It's unnecessary, and we think it will not benefit greater West Seattle. So that's sort of my my request and my explanation of why we feel that way, and I certainly open this up to questions and concerns.
Thank you, Mike, for some detailed history and things. Folks, I see Vicky dropped a comment over in the chat. If folks have questions or additional comments, or need to raise your hand, I'll get Kate looking for hands and chats and things. But I will take a first question or so here. I've kind of had two questions for a while, Mike, and I think you've addressed one of them, which is it sounds like you're saying that that the neighborhood is fine with the existing amount of traffic and space on Fauntleroy, and so you don't need the expanded dock in order to remove some of those cars from Fauntleroy. So that answers one question. And then the other, I guess it sounds like you're. Am I clear that you're very focused on how do we move cars more efficiently, and that you're hearing that the existing ferries are going to stay the same? Because I know in past conversations we've had around ferries, I mean, our opposition from at least some of us on the board has generally been, I mean, I didn't even want 120 car ferries on the run, because every time, I mean, traffic patterns have changed considerably in the last few years, and who knows what they're going to look like going forward. But the big concern has always been that a ferry pulls in and dumps 120 cars there. And it used to be you could literally time it. You could see the traffic come onto the bridge. And if anything was going on the bridge or backing up onto the bridge, we're literally just dumping 120 cars every 30-40 minutes into that mess. And that's not really a very smart thing to be doing for traffic patterns. So if they're telling you they're not looking to change ferry patterns, then I don't see why the existing dock capacity would not continue to be sufficient for continued operations. Are they? I mean, what is the reason they give for the expansion? Just that they're going to be able to do more efficient ticketing on a larger dock?
As I understand their statements, they would like to be able to, frankly, from pressure from the people that live on the other side, people would rather wait on the dock than wait on the street. They can see the boats coming, they can get out of their cars, mill around, and it takes some of the pressure off the toll booth if they have 120 cars sitting on the dock. Most of this most recent concern started when they had separate boats running to Vashon and to Southworth, because they couldn't separate the Vashon traffic from the Southworth traffic. So they would get the dock filled with half Vashon, half Southworth, but the line of traffic that went up Fauntleroy was not separated. So if they needed to get more Vashon cars on, they had to pull cars out of the line and in order to get them into the dock, creating problems. What they did to solve that was they got rid of the single destination boats, went dual destination, and all that went away. So there is no more an issue of trying to pull people out of line to fill a Vashon boat or a Southworth boat. The concern I think you expressed is part of the concern we had about where is this going. We have been told by ferries publicly that they do not intend to increase the size of the boat. I have been told privately by Senator Joe Nguyen, who sits on the State Transportation Committee, that that is their goal. Their goal is to put larger boats on this run. So back to your concern about dumping cars on. If we go to a 200 capacity car or a 200 capacity ferry, or even a 160 capacity ferry, it's that much longer to unload the boat, and it's that much bigger bubble that is going to cross the bridges. And it changes the nature of this community, not only Fauntleroy, but Morgan, Highland Park witnessed this when the ferry traffic was or the traffic from the peninsula was being rerouted through their community. Admiral says they don't benefit from the increased traffic because the people aren't doing business here. There are a few, but that core of people that live on Vashon would not be affected. Most of the traffic increase is coming from Southworth. So I don't know whether I answered your questions, but
yes, I mean, like I said, for my personal opinion, is just, I'm opposed to expanding the ferry dock if it's going to allow them to run larger ferries. I've long said that they should get rid of the darn dock, and they should have made plans for Coleman Dock to accommodate the ferry going in there. And it's ridiculous that we're putting thousands of cars running through our streets who, as you said, are not actually going anywhere in West Seattle. I have also said, years ago, I was involved with the monorail project, and everybody thought we were crazy that we didn't propose the monorail to go all the way down to the dock. And the reason that we decided not to was because all the studies we did back then told us that most of the people who were coming across the dock were not going into downtown. And so they were not going to get on a monorail to go downtown. So for me, I would totally be in favor of a letter opposing expansion of the dock for that reason. But I'd like to see some other board members weigh in with thoughts or questions.
Well, it looks like Deb is ready with her hand up.
Yep, thanks. Mike, I threw a question in chat about reaching out to Councilmember Mosqueda, who's probably doesn't care about this, but didn't know how you reached out to her. But this is a question I don't even feel like typing it in. So it's 150 car ferries, is that right?
they're 120 car ferry.
120. Okay, so how far? If car one is at the pay station, the ticket booth,
Right.
how far up approximately up Fauntleroy is 120 cars? Is it to the gas station?
No, that would be 180 to the gas station.
Okay, so it's okay. This is good to know because I drive by this all the time. So 120 is kind of like to the parking lot.
Yes. Yes. And
Wow.
increasing the size of the dock will not get rid of the cars on Fauntleroy.
I know. I realize that.
Yeah.
But and also then you said that the preference of the ferry riders was to wait not on Fauntleroy, but to wait on the dock.
Yes.
And the ferry dock currently holds how many?
80.
80. Okay, thanks.
There'd be another 100 cars on the dock. So
Yeah.
a little over twice the size.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. It's a heck of it. It's Morgan Community Association voted at a meeting to write a letter opposing the expansion because Morgan is equally, we get hammered by the vehicular traffic, by the road rage that comes through our community. And it also, for very obvious environmental reasons, is completely in opposition to so many principles that the city of Seattle is putting forward. So we sent our letter in, gosh, I want to say like 4 months ago, maybe longer, I forget. And I encourage other community organizations to do so.
I don't see anything else in the chat, but I do have a comment. It seems to me that there'd be some benefit to having a bigger dock because there would be fewer cars blocking driveways and jockeying for space and causing maybe dangerous conditions on Fauntleroy Way. That endangers bicyclists and community members, people trying to access the park, things like that. I'm just curious what you say about that.
Yeah, so even with the largest expansion on the dock, the cars will continue to stack up in front of the houses. So the blocking of the driveway and the inconveniences that creates will not go away.
There'd be less of it.
No, because the cars will back up to the park. The actual housing along there is actually a small, very small segment at the tail end of the line, or the front end of the line. So the people that live on that side of the ferry dock along Fauntleroy really have just accepted this. It doesn't bother them that much. I mean, once in a while there's a problem because you can't get in. It's actually the biggest annoyance is from the line cutters that see the spaces where the driveways are not supposed to be occupied and they zip in and cut the line. Not the residents that have the big issue.
Yeah, but people accessing the park would have an easier time if there weren't lines of cars parked at the crosswalks.
I don't know. It's only if they block or don't block the entrance and exit to the parking areas. Right now, that area is, you may not park in front of the park from 3 in the afternoon till I think it's 6. That wouldn't change.
Oh, well, that's not followed. If there's a no vehicular parking in front of the park.
Yeah, from 3 in the afternoon to 6 p.m.
Yeah, well, that's where we see all the cars parked.
Yeah.
And Victoria, they were out, STOT was out today doing something to your favorite signal at Rose, or not at Rose.
Yeah, Kenyon Place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Damn it.
Okay,
I'd like to,
yeah, go ahead.
Kate, I want to jump in here real quick because it's been evaluated and demonstrated that the bottleneck is getting past the toll booth. They can't move them fast enough through the toll booth, so they back up on Fauntleroy. And I would reiterate Mike's point. This is only a commuter traffic at night. I live right there. I see it every day. And so what has been proposed repeatedly is doing something different on how you pay the tolls so the cars can go right into the dock without having to stop at the toll booth. And FCA, there's been some great conversations about how that can be upgraded to what they're doing on our highways so that people don't have that, they don't have to stop and deal with that. So I can't stress that enough. If they could fix the toll booth process, we could get more cars on the dock quicker. And not
kind of like rapid ride, huh?
Correct. Mike, do you agree?
Yes. The toll booths on the highways on the East Coast have been replaced by automated things 15 years. And there's really no reason that they shouldn't put it on the ferry system. I mean, it's on our bridge, the WashDOT, it's already in the WashDOT system.
Yeah.
We use it on the tunnel. And the bridges across Lake Union or Lake Washington. So the technology is there. And
Mhm.
Tori was saying that's where the jam up is. That is why there's road rage in there, is because people want to get on, and somebody's reaching in their pocket to pull out their money to go through, and somebody else already is pre-ticketed, and the person that's pre-ticketed gets upset.
In fact, ferries have left not being full because cars are waiting to pay. And that's
Mhm.
something that the ferry people have acknowledged. So I want to throw that out there.
Yeah, maybe commuters are different and they time it, but it seems like cars would accrue over the, 30-minute time period between ferries. And there might be a crush at the end where you're trying to process a lot of cars, but just seems to me that they would sort of dribble in little by little between ferries.
They dribble in little by little at the non-rush hour times.
Mhm.
Rush hour, it's
Commuters know what time it is.
and they can't get through the toll booth.
Yeah.
The issue, they just can't get through.
On like summer vacation, like long weekends, Friday afternoons, how far up do the cars end up? Like on the craziest, busiest, hiking day of the year.
Past the Kenny.
Yeah.
That's the Kenny.
Yep. I saw
Okay.
there's some glitch 2 days ago, and they were past the Kenny up by the elementary school.
So
Wow.
Mike, they were only running 2 ferries that day or that afternoon.
Yeah, I figured that it had to be something like that. The efficiency issue that ferries complains about is self-made. I mean, it's, I don't blame individuals, but the ferries aren't reliable because they break down a lot. They have crew shortages and the toll booths. It's just, a bigger dock doesn't solve the problem.
So, Mike, what's in the plan? Like, is there I assume there's a plan for the new dock. Does that include reconfiguring the location or how the toll booths operate at all, or is that not in the larger plan?
So I skipped some of the steps that have already taken place. This was a question that Deb put in the chat. They had originally discussed moving the ferry dock to downtown. Now, it's interesting, downtown doesn't want any more cars. That they have said, we do not want any more cars coming into downtown. But they, we don't want them coming into Fauntleroy or West Seattle either. So, but the plan is based on what they've done so far is to leave the dock where it is. They talked about moving it north of Lincoln Park. They talked about moving it down to Des Moines. But those were really cursory evaluations. Long term, I think that's going to have to be put back on the table. They're going to have to think about that. But I won't be around at that point in time.
So just to make sure I understand things, they do collect tolls from cars until they fill the dock, right? So they'll, let's say a boat leaves and it's full, and there are magically no cars in line. Now, as cars arrive, they will ticket them and then load the dock. So they'll have 80 cars on the dock. So when the next boat arrives, they offload, and then the 80 that are already paid, they start loading on. And as they slide, the intent is to get the next 40, I can do math, before they run out of time for their sailing. And so really what we're talking about is the time it takes to pay 40 tolls.
That's correct.
And because I think when ferries talked to us, that was what they were saying, is they wanted to make sure that they always had a full boat past the toll booth
Right.
before the boat even arrived, especially during peak hours.
Right.
So on the one hand, I sort of agree with you should be ready to go for sort of a hot swap. On the other, if they're using, 1960s tolling technology, then maybe it is a self-imposed problem.
I don't think they're still using the credit card machine that you have to go like this, are they?
Yeah. They do for the people that use a credit card, but the people that are paying with cash, I'm reaching in my pocket, they have to make change. And so it's a problem. That's those people take up to 10 minutes to get through the toll booth. Where if the people are pre-ticketed and they can show the ticket, then it gets scanned in and they go through in a minute. So that's automation of this system, whether they're pre-ticketed. Somebody made the argument that, they pre-ticket for trains, they pre-ticket for airplanes. Why can't they pre-ticket for the ferry? But you have tourists who don't know those rules. And so if you had a combination of options, we're all for that. It's just that the toll booths as they are right now need to go. They're archaic.
So really it's more they need to move to the pay by mail model that, like, I know that some bridge right outside Victoria, BC, I was in Canada and was like, oh God, it's a toll bridge and I don't have Canadian money and I don't want to deal with this, and tried to avoid it and got forced through it anyway. And it was like, oh, I received a bill in the mail. And so any sort of pay by mail, it's like, click, I got your license plate. Now we can government track you and you owe us $1.50 or whatever it costs.
If you have a rental car on the East Coast and you go through a toll booth, they find you and you get, if the rental car doesn't send you a bill, the state does. So they're clearly, the technology's there to do this.
Whatever happened to the idea of sending staff down the line with handhelds? Did they ever try that? Was it ruled too dangerous for the ferry employees? Their argument was that they were not allowed off ferry property. Now, I won't comment on whether that's a valid concern, but that's their response to that, is they don't want their employees off their property, off the property they lease. Now it's, I didn't mention this, but this is Seattle city owned property that Ferries WashDOT rents leases from the city. And so changes to the ferry dock, and why your letter would be important, is because the city has to sign off on this expansion. So they can't just expand the dock without getting city approval. They have to get state approval, environmental approval, but.
Mike, does the city have to sign off on just the restoration?
I think they have to sign off on everything.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a hand, Phil?
Yeah. Mike, I'm on the board of the Admiral Neighborhood Association, and we have sent you a letter in opposition to it. And if there's anything else we can do, just let us know.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So is anyone here in the meeting, or anybody aware? Are there folks who are advocating, other than ferries, that are advocating for the larger dock?
Like riders from Vashon or Southworth?
Yes, that's where most of the pressure's coming from to the ferries and to the legislature. In the case of Vashon, Vashon isn't really growing. I mean, it's, you know, somewhat size limited. As I said earlier, most of the traffic is coming from Southworth. And Southworth actually isn't as vocal as Vashon. Vashon's quite a vocal. We hear that from all of the state elected folks. And I say, as I said earlier, I empathize with their issue, and what we're proposing would make their life easier. A bigger dock doesn't help them. We actually have signatures on a petition that we circulated in addition to the letters we got from these 4 communities. We have 700 paper signed signatures, so they're not, we tried to keep it off the internet kind of petition. But there are people from Vashon who don't want a bigger dock because they don't want more cars. They already see the problem as something that's imposed on them from cars from Southworth, not. So, but you're right. It's most of the push for a bigger dock are the people that ride the ferry, and you know, it's they would like to have be on the ferry dock instead of on the street.
Mike, where does the ferry, the South Vashon ferry end up? Does it end up in a residential community or in Tacoma, or does it go into the waterway? The waterway.
Yeah, it's Point Defiance, and I actually haven't gone down there on the road, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Huh. Okay.
This, as far as I know, this is the only ferry terminal that is in a residential community.
Mm-hmm.
All the rest of them are zoned commercial.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
And is there a deadline we're looking at to get the letter? If we wanted to submit one?
I would not say there's a deadline, but sooner the later, the sooner is better, because they are in active review of those 2 options I mentioned. One is keeping the dock the same size, and the other is increasing the size of it. We have a bit of an issue now that Lisa is no longer going to be our city council person, so we have to transition. So we're probably going to spend more time working with the state representatives to get them pushing, and the mayor. I mentioned we've kept Mayor Harrell informed on this, and may go to him to write a letter as well. But obviously, the more community support we can have, the greater weight that we will have with the mayor and the state representatives, state and county representatives.
Well, and you also have, you know, Joe McDermott's the lame duck, and you have people running for his seat. You have people running for D1 seat. You have a lot of, until at least August, you have a lot of new faces out there to educate.
Yes. Yes.
Sounds like this could be a really good question for all the D1 council candidates. Their knowledge of this issue.
Have you ever taken the ferry?
Well, you know, I can promise you we will have more board discussion, probably by email or at our upcoming board meeting.
Well,
this touches on some issues that we tend to be concerned about. We don't like to take stances very often, but I think this that there may potentially be issues that we could raise in a letter. So
great. Well, I appreciate your time and willingness to listen and active questions, and your support. You know, Admiral's support, Morgan's community support, Highland Park Action Committee. Those are all, you know, very much appreciated.
I mean, that's some good coverage over here, I must say. That's good to hear. All right, we will let you get going then.
Okay.
And we will wrap up a few things
Thanks,
for the end of the meeting here.
Great. Thank you again. Have a
Thanks,
great
Mike.
Okay, thanks.
year. Bye-bye.
All right.
What was your advertisement you had there?
Oh no, that's remember that's the stuff from
Oh, right. Yeah. Got it.
FCA's yeah.
Okay. I thought you were throwing more advertisements at us
Yeah,
tonight.
no,
I
no,
love that.
no. I like to do that sometimes, but that's
Okay.
nice. So reviewing some old business, reminding folks again, we are on a bi-monthly meeting schedule. So our next meeting will be May 25th, followed by July, September, and November. Believe it or not, I think we do still intend to transition into hybrid meetings here at some point. But there were just things that were not coming together to do that for tonight. But if folks were not with us in January, we have a generous invitation from Aegis Living West Seattle up in Admiral to use some space up there. And a reminder that we've talked about reaching out to the West Seattle Chamber of Commerce to partner on looking at bus service and things like this. Might be good to chat with them and see if they've got a stance about the ferry dock as well. I don't think there was any other old business. Well, I should have put on a new business, I guess. Before we move to new business, any other old business or questions that people had? Yes, Deb waving her hand.
So old business, I think, well, rapid ride delays has been a topic of ours before. And I've noted the last 10 days or so, and especially just this week, that there's a lot of rapid ride cancellations. And I, track that, learn about the whys and the wherefores through the blog, but and a lot of this stuff is the outbound in rush hour, so heading back to downtown for those who are interested in taking in evening culture that you can't find here. So I'm posing that as something that do we need to investigate or ask Metro about? We've heard it before, but I thought things were supposed to be getting better, and I'm noticing, because I get alerts, my phone blows up, not just in the morning with all the canceled buses, but in the evening with the canceled buses, and that it's both ways. It's dual shutdowns. So that's my old business item, more of a, hey, let's investigate this.
I mean, I certainly have noticed. As far as I know, it just continues to be their driver struggles at Metro. Although you would think that if you're going to launch rapid ride, you might try to figure out how to mitigate that a little bit for the rapid ride routes.
Yeah.
But that's my understanding, is that's really all that it is. As somebody who's on the bus, the trouble is this is a very crowded bus route. So every time they cancel something, it just makes the next bus even more crowded. So we're
canceling
up
double
to standing
and
room
triple
only.
buses.
Yeah, we're very well into standing room only, like pre-pandemic rush hour is what the buses often look like right now. So
so we're all right with just hearing the same old.
But again, that could perhaps lead into a good discussion about why we need to talk about what does bus service actually look like to West Seattle, and how are people wanting to get around.
Fair enough, because it's realizing that people cannot get to downtown on off hours. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. So wrong.
Any other questions or comments from folks?
Or
Bus
old
service, other old business.
Okay.
Transitioning to new business, we did kind of talk about this a little bit last time, but I left on here about, we sort of talked, it sounded like we were leading towards putting together, especially for maybe the primary, candidate questionnaire for D1 city council candidates. So I think that's definitely interested. I dropped the email, our email address on there. If there are folks in the meeting or watching this afterwards who are like, yes, there's something that I absolutely think you should be asking council candidates, feel free to send us an email. And I think we could probably put something together. It sounds like knowledge of the Fauntleroy Ferry dock situation is certainly a good example. Sound transit is probably a good thing we could put on. And so if and we can follow up by email, but I'd love to know sort of any board members who are interested in putting our heads together and coming up with, again, I'm imagining a small questionnaire. I think candidate questionnaires have crazy multiplied in the last couple of cycles, as well as I don't think we need to ask like, do people support transit? Or like, I'm a big fan of, we don't need to ask things if we're just going to end up learning that like all 7, I think we've got 7 candidates now, all 7 candidates are all like pro bus or love rapid ride or whatever. I think we just want to like hone in on what are some really key questions, and are we asking for a yes or no, or are we looking to gauge whether they have some understanding of an issue, and we can get a lot more specific and intense when we're down to a top 2. But so that's my thoughts in terms of how we lean right now.
Are we at all interested in also having a candidate questionnaire for the D8 for King County for McDermott's spot?
Oh, we could certainly do that.
Because that covers Metro, just saying. And I know some, you'd hope that they would be familiar with West Seattle if they're running for that spot.
I mean, I don't see why not. I suppose some of these issues,
And
some of
may
the same questions would essentially apply in both cases. And so it's just a matter of identifying the additional people we have to send it to.
Mhm.
So that should be relatively easy, I would think.
Is everyone okay with that? Silence.
Yep.
Might draw in some water taxi questions in terms of passenger versus cars going from Vashon, even though the passenger ferry doesn't actually come over here. Although I guess we have it leaving on the other side here to go downtown as well. But so I realized looking at this, something I didn't include in new business. So we are back current as a nonprofit as far as the state is concerned. So we are sort of a recognized entity, recognized organization again for, that and a dime won't buy you coffee anymore, but like, I don't know that it gets us all that much, but we are current again. And I did put out a nice chunk of money out of my own pocket to do that. So happy to share the receipt around with the board if you'd like to see some evidence, but I'd certainly like to put out if any board members are interested in kicking in a little bit of money to help pay for that, it'd be nice. Since I also cover the Zoom for our meetings as well. And again, anybody listening who's like, doesn't really thinks we're getting money from some source somewhere. We are the West Seattle Transportation Coalition is a volunteer-run organization, and we do not currently charge memberships to anybody. Therefore, we always love if people think we're doing good work and want to support us. Drop us a note at that info@westseattletc.org email address, and we're happy to let you know how you can toss a few coins into the jar for us.
Into the turnstile.
There you go, into the ferry turnstile. Jeremy, yes.
Since we are on a bi-monthly schedule, if I understand our bylaws correctly, next month will be board member elections for the odd seats. Sorry, next meeting. So,
Oh my goodness. I guess we do need to be on top of that, or at least have the nomination so that we can do it at the top of the July one, I guess.
yeah, so maybe that means we need to work that out at the next board meeting, but the reduction to every other month from every month, currently it should be at the May 25th meeting.
There we go. Kate, make sure we note that in the minutes so that we don't forget to cover that at the board meeting.
So when everyone reads the minutes on May 25th, we
I sent them out on
I'm not
Slack
blaming you,
early.
you're not who I'm blaming. I'm blaming the rest of us.
I won't ask how many people read the minutes just before the meeting, or even as we were starting the meeting or scrolling through.
I read them just before the meeting to see if they hadn't changed, or well, but I also read them the day that she posted them. So I wanted to know what I was agreeing to. So,
is there any more new business that folks would like to bring up?
So I have been thinking about your bike ride idea, and I've got a route in mind and just need to kind of work on a date, which is tricky. Just weather-wise, I would rather plan it for some time when the weather's a little more sure, but and just a little copy, like come learn about transportation, biking in West Seattle and the West Seattle Transportation Coalition all in one place and have fun doing it, or something like that. So
I mean,
anyways,
waiting a while certainly gives us an opportunity to reach out to some other partners. I mean, obviously reaching out to West Seattle Bike Connection is very easy for you to do. But I think I mentioned before, like, it might be a great opportunity to reach out to one of the bike shops, an opportunity for electric bike folks to have a few available for folks to come and actually test out what would it be like to ride for a few miles on the streets with an electric bike and decide whether it's a purchase they want to make. So yeah, maybe we could, even if we get a business start or destination that wants to help support, it could turn into quite a fun event.
What's the route you were thinking about?
I figure it needs to be not too long and pretty flat. So I was thinking we could start at the Delridge Community Center, a nice starting spot, and head southbound on the 26th Avenue Greenway and then the new Delridge bike lanes heading south, and get a nice pastry or something at Fresh Flowers, maybe as a turnaround spot, and then come back via the Pigeon Point Greenway system back to the community center. So
Pigeon Point's a hill, right?
there's a hill in there, but it's not horrible when you do it that
When you come from
direction. When you go the
south.
other way, it's bad.
Yeah. Good idea.
Yeah, so could be fun.
Very cool.
And
All right.
I also wanted to mention that I think West Seattle Bike Connections is going to do our mini Seattle to Portland ride again this year. And maybe we can help get the word out about that. And, maybe some of you would want to join it. You too could ride from Seattle to Portland. I don't know if you guys know about, you're giving me quizzical looks.
It's not the STP, it's from Seattle Street to Portland Street.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
And it's usually done the weekend of the big Seattle to Portland, but which also usually falls on the street fair, the big West Seattle Street Fair. So we ride from Seattle Street down to Portland Street. And then if you want to, you can come back to the party. So
that's a great idea for there. Yeah.
It's a fun ride.
Yeah. No idea what Portland Street is. Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. That's me.
All right. Anyone else? Not hearing anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn and save
I would
24 minutes.
move that the West Yale Transportation Coalition adjourn its March 23rd or 3/23/23 meeting, just for number of people.
Right. All those in favor, say aye.
I
Any opposed?
Mark would oppose if you were here. Okay.
Only because he would want to have made the motion.
I know.